Okay, am I good to go?
Just 1 second. And whenever you're ready, Karen.
Thank you, Sean. Good evening, Restonians, and welcome to this special meeting, a public budget hearing on Wednesday, October 13th at 7 p.m. I am Karen Anton, RA President, and I hereby call this meeting to order. By way of opening remarks, I would like to speak a little bit about how I'd like things to go tonight. This is a public hearing, so the purpose of this is to hear from our members with comments, questions, concerns about our budget. This is the first of 2 public hearings that will be held. The second one will be on November 10th at 7 p.m. Draft 1 of the budget has already been presented to the board, and we've given our feedback to staff on that. They are continuing to work, and we'll be presenting another draft for the fiscal committee to look at next week, and then we'll come back to the board at our October 28th meeting with a draft 2. So with that said, and what will happen tonight is we'll start with our acting CEO, Larry Butler, just giving a high-level overview. Hopefully you've seen and looked at all the budget documents in the packet, so we're not going to be going into deep dives with all of that tonight. The purpose of tonight is to hear from you, so we can continue with that. So with that, I would like a motion to adopt the agenda for this special meeting. Thank you, Bob. Is there a second? Thank you, Aaron. All those in favor? Okay. Anybody opposed? Nope. Then the motion carries. Next item on the agenda is member comments, and these will be member comments if we have any that are other than comments pertaining to the budget. Those will be heard once we go to the public hearing agenda item. So do we have anyone who would like a member comment not about the budget? Yes, Bob.
Since this is the last board meeting before, I believe, Melissa leaves RA, I would like to congratulate her on her years of service. I appreciate all the work that she's done, and I wish her the best. I know everybody else on the board wishes her the best in her new endeavors.
Thank you. Thank you very much for doing that, Bob. Yes, appreciate it. Yes. Melissa Kelly, our HR director, is leaving us on October 20th and has a wonderful opportunity that she's taking advantage of. She will be greatly missed. So thank you. We wish her all the luck, as you said, Bob. Any other member comments?
I'm seeing a hand from Charlie Hoffman.
And I see Charlie. Charlie, do you have a member comment not about the budget? You're on mute. There you go.
Yes, I do. Well, actually about future budget. As I spoke to you, and I'm Charlie Hoffman, 1142 Tambark Drive. I'm the South Lakes representative to the Covenants Committee. So I thought I'd sit in on the South Lakes listening session the other week. And one issue that somewhat concerned me was, before I get in, I realized that tennis players have a very large lobby in Reston, so I'm going to offend many people. But word was brought up about building a covered tennis court. And that seems a little much for us. My point is that for the very small % of the population that will use it, it's a very large expense. And I don't personally think the board should take on that vote themselves. I think that's such an item that is for such a small percent of the population. It should be voted on by the entire residency of Reston, rather than just those of you who are gracious enough to put your time in on the board. I mean, we do support the clay courts, which are a very large expense for the small amount of use they get. And I think that we're not in a situation where we can really afford to be spending a lot of money on things that such a small percent of our membership can use on a regular basis. So that was my whole point. It's not this year's budget, but I think it's something that is a pretty big lot of money for not too many people, and that the board should consider that something should be on a ballot and not just taken by people. That's it.
Thank you, Charlie. And for the records, please state your name and address, or did you already do that?
I did, but it's Charlie Hoffman.
No, I'm sorry if you did.
It's recorded.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any other member comments not about the 22-23 biennial budget? Okay,
I do see a hand from Lance.
okay. Lance,
yes.
please state your name and address. There you are.
Lance Parkinson, 1625 Inlet Court. And it's kind of related to probably future assessments, or the way you do assessments in the future. As I can see in this, even with this budget going around, there's probably going to, the assessments will continue to increase. So I recently moved, well, not, it was about 10 years ago, I moved from Ashburn Farm, and they had a tiered assessment. So if you live in a condo, if you live in a townhome, and if you live in a single family home, you pay a different rate just because of usually use less amenities depending on where you live. I just hope at some point, at least Western Association consider doing some type of study or something to see how that would impact the overall budget, to have this tiered approach instead of everyone paying the same amount. Thank you.
Thank you. You are not the first person to bring this up. Any other member comments not related to this budget? Okay, if not, we will move on to item D, which is the public hearing portion. And as I said, we would start this off with our acting CEO, Larry Butler, giving a little high-level presentation.
Karen, I think we have a few in chat trying to speak.
There's a message from Kay Boyer in chat.
Oh, okay, but she's unable to unmute. Can someone help her unmute?
Just tried to unmute you, Kay.
Thank you.
There you go.
Oh, all right. Can you
Ms.
hear me?
Boyer, you have a member comment, not about the budget?
Yes.
Okay,
I live at 10901 Quimby Point Lane,
thank you.
right off of Barton Hill. So my comments are to address the future of the tennis courts. I think we should definitely maintain them, improve them. However, my big concern is about our fragile environment. If you go downstream from the tennis courts, it's the Snake Den Valley stream, that every time it rains, that area is flooded. Many trees have been undermined. At last count, there were about 100 trees down. I was sitting on the deck the other day and just another tree fell down. So this is a big concern. If we make big improvements to the tennis court, will there be more runoff affecting that stream? And I would like to have an environmental impact study done of the stream in relation to any improvements that are being made to the tennis courts.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Boyer. Oh, do you have more?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Anybody else that I missed that has a member comment? If you're trying to make a member comment and can't unmute,
Karen, I think Tammy wanted to make a comment. Is that correct, Tammy? Let me find her here. There you are.
Tammy, you're unmuted.
No, I'm good at this time. Thank you. I have comments for the budget. Thank you.
okay, thank you, Tammy. Okay. Any other member comments? All right, then moving on to item D. And I'm going to turn this over to Larry.
All righty. Thank you, Karen, and good evening, everybody. Nice to see so many people on. Typically, our budget hearings do, garner a little interest, so it's good to see people coming out to share their thoughts on the process and what's before them. I just want to spend a very few minutes on kind of how we got here and what some of the priorities are from my perspective, and also some of the guidance we've recently gotten from the board. First and foremost, what I instructed the staff, and this really came from Hank, who was our CEO, who recently left, was to look at the 2019 actuals and the 2021 forecast for creating the 2022 and then also the 2023 draft one budget. And the reason for that is that, as most of you, I think everybody's aware, 2020 was one of those years that was a little unusual for one big reason, but for a lot of reasons. And so we want to use a baseline of an actual year that where our programs were running at generally full tilt and so forth. And also look at 2021 because we still had some impacts of the pandemic. And we may going forward, but in 2020, I think the staff reacted really well in terms of cutting back on expenses and so forth. And so we ended up with a very, very balanced budget, despite a distinct lack of non-assessment revenue in 2020. So that was kind of the foundation of where we started with those numbers. The other thing that I put in that draft budget were, and I'm not going to go through the whole list. Hopefully people have read the memo that went to fiscal twice to the board. It actually started with some early meetings in, I think, June that Hank had. So I trust that everybody at least has a fundamental idea of what's in that draft budget. But again, a couple of high level things. Cost of increase for goods and services. So we've got a fairly substantial factor in there for just inflation. We figured that's about $100,000. Our insurance has gone up. The general liability and umbrella liability market is a little bit crazy right now. So we have factored in those costs. I have included merit, 3% merit for staff who received no merit this year, as well as the second part of what was called the Archer study from 2019, where we would move approximately 46 staff to the bottom of their pay ranges. And 83% of those staff make below $60,000, including with bringing them to the bottom of their pay ranges. So in this job market, I felt it was very important to do that. We typically have found that it takes 50 days to hire a staff person. I'm not talking about the CEO search that's kicking off right now, but basically any staff. So you're talking 50 days. So it is a difficult process and it's a tough market. So anyways, I felt that was really important, and so we've got that in there. On the capital side, I want to mention that because it's come up. We do have in there the completion of the Lake Throw Pool project, which is a substantial piece of the capital budget for 2022. We also have in there the renovation and lighting of Barton Hill tennis courts. The Parks and Rec Advisory Committee has recommended doing blended lines on 2 of those courts to provide pickleball. And so that is what we have in there. I have taken off the table the notion of covering it. I believe it's too expensive. And because it would, while it's not creating a year-round facility, we don't have another covered tennis court. And while I don't have a legal opinion from our general counsel on that, it may very well require a referendum. as Mr. Hoffman spoke to earlier. So I've taken that off the table. So the proposal that the board is getting a lot of input on is to repair the courts. They need a major renovation because of the cracks and so forth, not unlike what we just did for Hook Road, but also to light them and then do 2 of the courts for pickleball. So that's what's on the table right now. So hopefully that'll clear up some of the comments that were possibly going to come. Some of the things that we've included from draft 1 that we will be incorporating in draft 2 that will be going to the fiscal committee next week and to the board in October, as Karen noted, was to add a senior environmental staff person. So we will include that, increasing our base lifeguard pay to hopefully be able to recruit and retain lifeguards, as well as paying for their certifications and recertifications, which often becomes a problem for some of these younger lifeguards. We're also going to increase our vacancy and attrition, which is a savings that we build into the budget as directed by the board. And see a couple other notes. We're removing one of the positions I had proposed. We're removing the registrar position. And let's see, I think those are some of the key ones. Again, I hope that everybody had a chance to review that material. It's on our website. I think it's actually in 2 different places. It's on the fiscal committee section, as well as we have a budget section on our website. And I think, Mike or somebody from the communication staff can probably put that in chat as well, so people can get to that information easily. So again, this process started actually back in April. We put out the community suggestion form. The prior CEO talked to the board and fiscal committee several times over the summer. And now we're moving from draft 1 to draft 2. And again, happy to see so many people on the call. And I know I and the other staff, as well as the board, are interested in what you think, what you believe the priority should be, and how that will influence as we move forward into draft 2, and perhaps the draft 3, and perhaps the final draft as we get into early November. So with that, Karen, I think I'm done with that. And so
Okay.
go.
Thank you, Larry. So, yeah, again, and it's great that we have so many of you on this call. That's not always the case, and hopefully more and more people will join as we go on. And we want to hear from everybody who has something to say. The comments in chat are being captured. And I will call on people who want to say something. We're going to try to hold to the 3 minutes for individuals, 5 minutes for people who are representing groups. I want to avoid this becoming sort of a question and answer dialogue thing. We just want to hear what you have to say. And as I said, it will all be captured. And but if we get into a lot of questions, it's difficult because staff doesn't always have the answers right at their fingertips. But so don't expect a lot of two-way tonight. But we are very anxious to hear from all of you. I had a request from a member who wanted his note read into the record this evening. So if you will indulge me, I will read that. And it is from former board member and actually former vice president, secretary, and treasurer Mike Sanyo, 1307 Sawbridge Way. And he says, please read this note into the record for the RA budget discussion on October 13th. As some of you know, I have been a strong proponent of Reston Association continued investment in its parks and rec assets, in particular its tennis facilities, for the benefit of youth and high school students. As the Reston Association moves ahead with its final budget development for 2022-23, it must resurface and install LED lights to the existing tennis courts at the intersection of Barton Hill Road and Sunrise Valley Drive. There are many valid reasons to support this proposal. Potential points in favor are: 1, with higher demand for tennis and pickleball, there is a demonstrated shortage of lighted courts. 2, of the current 26 lighted courts, 18 are north of the toll road and only 8 are south of the toll road. 3, the continued popularity of the Reston Team Tennis League plus group tennis and pickleball lessons has made it nearly impossible to find an open hard court on Wednesday and Thursday evenings between 7 and 10 p.m. and difficult on Monday or Tuesday if rain makeups. 4, the conversion of 2 tennis courts at Autumnwood to 4 pickleball courts has already reduced the number of lighted tennis courts to 24. 5, during the November through March months, 8 of the current 24 lighted courts are clay and are not playable due to the risk of frozen water and supply pipes. During those months, that reduces to 4 the number of lighted courts on the south side. 6, of the existing court sites in South Reston for possible lighting, Barton Hill is the most practical due to the distance and the dense growth of trees between the courts and any residence. 7, the other existing 4 court sites on the south side, Upper Lake and Newbridge, are very close to residences. 8, the other existing 2 court site is Colts Neck, which is not practical due to a gravel road access, quite limited parking, and no nearby electrical connection. 9, the popularity of the LED lights at the North Hills and Hook Road courts have demonstrated the greatly improved visibility while generating no complaints from nearby residents. 10, I'm almost done. The proposed 2022 budget for this project is $381,290 out of the total proposed capital budget of $3,251,225. And 11, the Barton Hill project would also include a complete redo of the surface as was recently done at the Hook Road courts with an expected useful life of 25 years. That was from Mike Sanyo. Okay. Please raise your hand. Yes, I see Laura David. And Jordan Fletcher, you will be next. Yes, can someone unmute Laura, please?
Laura, there you go.
Yes, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Please state your name,
Yes.
which you already have, and your address.
Yes, my name is Laura David and I live at 10964 Harper Square Court in the cluster immediately south of the Barton Hill Tennis Courts. And I would like to address this issue of the Barton Hill Tennis Court use. First, let me thank you all for your participation and activity in protecting all of our activities around the Reston community. I fully appreciate the value of our trails and our bike paths and our tennis courts and our swimming pools. And I do support using funds to resurface and improve the infrastructure of the Barton Hill courts. If we're going to be good stewards of what we've already made, we should keep them in top-notch condition. But I do strongly oppose any plans to put artificial lighting in this area. The Barton Hill courts directly border a natural watershed habitat with nesting birds and flora and fauna that I think will be unduly impacted by increasing the artificial light pollution in our community. We have, as Reston, committed to being a biophilic community, and we published a pledge and various core values and action items for our residents to observe. And one of those action items was that the residents indeed should decrease their own nighttime outdoor lighting. So it doesn't seem consistent with our values of really prudent use of our natural resources, staying connected with nature as a biophilic community, and observing good ecology principles that we should turn on abnormal or artificial lights in this area, some of which stay on as late as 11 p.m., I understand from what the other courts around town are doing. I think that putting in lighting, even if it's energy efficient or if it's on demand, still commits us as an investment to putting more strain and drain on our energy utilization and finances for years to come. And therefore, it's not a wise investment now, nor is it a wise investment for the future of energy utilization in the Northeast corridor of the United States. With 26 courts around town that are already lit, I think it's appropriate that we figure out management ways and scheduling devices to use them appropriately within normal daylight hours and in normal weather conditions, and observe what our values and principles are. And that is to live with nature, not to live in opposition to nature. Along Sunrise Valley Drive, we already have a lot of lighted parking lots and commercial venues and shopping supermarkets and other things that already put a lot of light into the natural environment. So I think it's unwise for us to spend additional monies to light up an area that is otherwise a natural habitat and can easily be used within working hours. I also think that parking along Sunrise Valley Drive, which is rather dangerous, and creating a space for evening loitering or for more police patrols is going to put an undue burden on our local neighborhoods. But mostly I feel that this lighting is not beneficial for the natural habitat and the commitment that we've made to work within nature in our community and not put a strain on this budget or future budgets. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Laura. Jordan, I believe you were next.
Hey, good evening, board and Karen. So this comment is not about the Barton Hills tennis courts. Is that still okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, so Jordan Fletcher, 12622 Berdune Lane, Reston, Virginia. The 2022 RA budget calls for an 8% increase in RA staff compensation, about a 7% increase in cost for seasonal employees, about a 60% increase in on-call, 20% increase in guard cost, and nearly 270% increase in cost due to a vision insurance plan. And the costs are currently spread unevenly across the 107 RA full-time employees and 2 part-time employees. So I feel it is clear and obvious that the RA labor force is a significant portion of our annual budget. I believe in the budget plan, it says it's about 66%, and that costs for labor are increasing due to real growth in compensation and benefits. The labor force growth should therefore be carefully considered and constrained. However, we have added 23 new positions in the past 8 years, which is a 28% increase in the overall staff. And the RA board is recommending adding another 4 in 2022. So rather than automatically deciding to hire more staff when a new service is needed or when demand grows, I think we should consider, can the new service be automated through IT? Are there similar functions performed by underutilized or part-time positions on the RA staff? Or is there an opportunity to shift staff from one function to another? So if we look at staffing as a zero-sum game, I think that will help us constrain the annual cost, retain our existing services, and keep assessment increases from growing at a rate higher than actual wage growth or retirement income growth. Think about residents here who are on a fixed income like Social Security, right, where a 5.9% increase is the best they've seen in 40 years. If we increase assessments by 15%, we'll quickly be pricing out our valued retired population out of our neighborhood. One of the alternatives proposed by the budget committee is to reduce services, but without a clear understanding of what services are affected by the proposed labor changes. We cannot make an informed decision about what labor changes are warranted or beneficial and will have the least long-term impact on our commonly used member services. So my recommendation is that we provide a listing of all 109 staff positions, their employment status, full-time, part-time, seasonal, the position responsibilities, and whether or not they're filled onto our community Dropbox. And I think we'll see that there are opportunities to be more objective in how we're planning out future staff positions. And the transparency of the RA staffing, I think, will build a lot of goodwill with the RA members. Also, if the fiscal committee is unable to create or maintain that listing, I'm going to just volunteer that the IT committee do so, because I'm a member of the IT committee and I'll gladly do that for everybody, at least quarterly. So that's all of my comment.
Thank you, Jordan. Okay, Tammy, you had, I'm looking for raised hands. Tammy, I know you said you wanted to speak. I see one person with, who am I missing with? Is that, let me pull up my whole participant list.
Thank you. I could not agree more with the preceding 2 speakers. I would love to see some actual figures, some real, I talked to members. I didn't just have a conversation at the coffee shop. I actually, asked members how many people are tennis players. Mike Sanyu had a very annotated list, good for him. The next speaker, Laura, said she lives right there and she doesn't want it. My issue is I understand that when you redo a tennis court and Barton Hills may be ready to be redone, I would like to see the preliminary work that has to go underground under the new surface of the tennis court be prepared for lighting, but lighting not installed until it is known by a survey that, yes, indeed, we have 60 plus members, and a significant number, more than 200 or 400 people, want to use lighted tennis. We can't keep doing these things. I like it, I want it, therefore we're going to do it for small vocal groups of people. On the other side, regarding the Jordan's comments about staff, yes, we want good people and we want to pay them correctly, but this is crazy that we're adding people every single year. And when we don't have proven need to have them. And I am specifically amazed that we have 2 social media people. And I want to know what in the world they're doing. How many people do you need in a communications office to do that kind of thing? I've seen absolutely nothing on Nextdoor or anything that indicates that we're getting our money's worth out of 2 social media people. So, and that's just one thing. I think RA members deserve to have input into how this is all working. We get a 3-minute section at a hearing or a 3-minute section at a board meeting to be able to talk to you all. I suppose we could, take time to write you lists, but we really would like an interchange discussion versus just us telling you how we feel. That's where you get the real meat of the problem and how together we can solve things. The board works their buns off. I know that. Some staff works.
Right, that's actually 3 minutes.
Yeah, and there we go. And that's exactly the problem. So thank you very much. And I hope that we get a survey.
Did you state your address, Tammy, for the record?
2503 Foxcroft Way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. I see Dan and Meg have their hand raised.
Hi, this is Dan Burdine. I live on 10900 Harper Square Court. Also, just a hopefully brief comment about the tennis court situation on Barton Hill. We can more or less see it from our house. So we're pretty close. I agree with most of the comments that have been made so far with regards to some of the concerns there. I would just also highlight that intersection is already a bit of a safety issue. And if there's work being done at that intersection, I would think it would make more sense to focus on addressing the safety concerns with that crosswalk than adding additional lighting and adding more congestion and usage of that location. There are certain times of day when it's very difficult for people turning onto Barton Hill to see that there's someone in the crosswalk is sort of what I'm getting at. And the more activity there is there, the more likely I see that coming up as an issue. And that's long term. Short term, medium term, the construction will probably be an issue there as well. But I just want to sort of put that out there as an additional layer on the concerns there.
Thank you, Dan. Other raised hands We have a lot going on in chat. Okay. Does anybody else wish to speak? I'm just wondering if people who are asking, questions that can easily be answered tonight, if we want to, just, if it's a simple, something that requires just a simple factual answer. Larry, are you seeing anything that? I'm trying to watch hands as well as read chats at the same time, so it's a little bit.
Aaron, we have a hand for Lance.
Lance, did you wish to speak again?
Yeah, so
Oh,
I guess,
that's, your other was a member. That's fine.
Lance
Name and
Parkinson,
address, please, again. I'm sorry.
yeah, Lance Parkinson, 1625 Inlet Court. I guess my question hopefully simple. I just want to know, well, I try to look through the budget, but I just wasn't sure. What's the proposed assessment for this year compared to last year?
Well, that's not been finalized yet.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Hey,
Karen, I think it was published though. Can we at least say what was published for this version of the budget? I mean, we still have work to do, but we do have a proposed or working draft.
You want me to take that, Karen?
Sure.
So what we put together for draft one, the draft one assessment was 829, where I acknowledge that would very likely come down through all the deliberations of the board. What I also recommended is that the board work with the fiscal committee and look at our not only our cash position from an operating surplus standpoint, but also to reallocate some undone capital projects to help with funding the repair and replacement fund or capital projects going forward in 2022 and 2023, which would bring the actual assessment increase to the membership. That's on a different sheet. It's about 6%. I think about $49. That's on that exact sheet.
Yeah, and one of the things that we're looking at now, and I don't know if you wanted to get into that tonight, Larry, at all, but some of the funding options that we're looking at in order to keep the assessment rate increases little as possible.
Right, and that's essentially what I said there, Karen, was, to look at where we are financially as an organization. We're very strong financially. And I know the fiscal committee has discussed it a number of times, what our end of year cash balance should be, to keep the lights on, pay the bills versus what we have had in some years, as well as holding on to reserve funding for projects that haven't been done for whatever those reasons may be. In addition to also reallocating some of what we call the CAR for the new capital funding as well, and reallocating that. So those are all strategies that I hope the board, gets into those discussions here in the coming weeks, because I think they're important. Whether the assessment, and it's not going to stay at 829, but regardless of where the assessment ends up, I think that's an important discussion for this board to have.
Thank you, Larry. Is there anybody else wishing to speak? Okay.
Karen, I see one more hand from Tammy.
Oh, okay. Yes, Tammy?
I just am curious. To me, it seems so obvious that when you have 22,000 households in a membership, that the first thing or one of the main things you would do when you're deciding how you're going to handle the upkeep of amenities is that your membership would be polled by surveys. Why is this not done just as a maybe every 2 years? We paid $144,000 for a branding study, but we never did a survey. And that seems to be such a useful tool for the board and the staff to use to determine what the members actually want and are willing to pay for. And we are in a very odd time in our history where we're in an economic chaos and we don't actually know, but certainly our economy is a mess. Inflation is peering at us and we don't know where we're going. So I would caution to be very careful on spending and really know that there's a significant number of members that want certain things. I commend you greatly on the effort you made on the Shadowwood pool. You did a lot of things, reached out and got a lot of input on that. I'm very thrilled to see that. But a more general overall rest and I think would be very helpful. If you don't get much response, that's on members, but they should be asked. And I would encourage the board as a working tool to get a survey on how many, very basic, how many people play tennis, how many people, swim and or whatever, so that you actually have some, not guessing at stuff, you have some really concrete statistics on that. I think that would be very helpful for everyone and give more weight to your decisions and help you all. I know you guys don't want to be doing crazy stuff that nobody is approving. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. Anybody else? I will say that we have received a good number of emails in the past several days from members expressing their views on Barton Hill and the lighting, and those have been forwarded on to our Parks and Rec Director Laura Kowalski and our tennis manager Rob Tucker. And of course, the whole board has seen them. So thank you for those. If some of you who have sent those are on tonight or listening tonight. And again, we have another public hearing on November 10th. We will have a draft 2 of the budget before that time. So please make note of that date. It will be a 7 p.m. meeting again, as tonight was. So if there are no other comments tonight, and I will ask one more time. I thank you all. I thank you all for being here and for taking the time. I know we're all busy people, but our member input is crucial to us as we make these difficult decisions. So glad to see so many of you here and making comments in chat, and hope we'll have at least this many, if not more, on November 10th. And Dan, are you wishing to speak again? No, it looks like a thumbs up or something. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, well, then if are no other people wishing to speak, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Bob, your hand went up. So moved. I read your lips. You said so moved. Okay. Jennifer, is that a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor? Any opposed? I think everybody was in favor of that. Sarah, was that an aye from you and Tom? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you all very, very much for being here. We really appreciate your engagement in your community, and it's very helpful to us. And have a good rest of your evening.